Thank you. How many have an Easter tradition? One. What is it? I'm sorry, Mel was supposed to ask you anything. Okay, Easter basket and for eggs. Anybody else got any? Oh, there's a tentative hand who's up there, Val. At Grandma's house. That's Thanksgiving, you go to Grandma's house. Okay, Easter. Deal. Some of you all were not going to say anything, but you know that. Okay. Well, my favorite Easter tradition was getting this pecan-covered Russell Stover's fudge egg. You know, and I don't think they don't even make them anymore. I mean, where has the world gone? Well, we had a bunch of Easter traditions at 8 or 9:15 here this morning. And by the way, you guys are smart because I've had a chance to practice this sermon recently. So we had the blowing of the shofar, which is a ram's horn. It's Jewish tradition. We've got to appropriate for this morning. And then we had the Hallelujah chorus, and we had a trumpet player. And I think these happen and then, you know, kind of a reunion of some families, which is a nice thing. And then some of you are going to go eat somewhere and all that. And I thought that I would just go ahead and talk about Easter today. It seems appropriate. So the scripture is from Luke, one of the four Gospels. They all have an Easter morning story. They are all different. I picked Luke because I like it. It talks about they. And you'll find out who they are in a minute. On the first day of the week at early dawn, they came to the tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared. And they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly two men in dazzling clothes stood behind them. The women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified, and on the third day rise again." And then they remembered his words, and returning from the tomb, they told all this to the 11 and to the rest. And now it was Mary Magdalene and Joanna and Mary the mother of James and the other women with them who told this to the apostles. And how did the apostles react? But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. I know all of us have had experiences, sometimes multiple experiences, where you feel like you are in a fog. And it's usually not because something really good has happened. Now, this morning we read a wonderful story about women who were desperate to do something to honor Jesus, their friend, and they went taking the funeral customs of spices, and they were going to wash and anoint his body. And like all of us who lose something that's important to us, they must have been really upset and sad. But those times, you know, you just kind of keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you get what needs to be done. And so before dawn, they were ready. And then here they have this experience of this empty tomb. And where's Jesus? And somebody is taking him. And then these two kind of mysteriously angelic visitors appear. And what? He's risen. You're looking for Jesus among the dead. He's not dead. He's alive. And so in this fog of that experience, they go back and they tell Jesus' other disciples. You know, and it's not just 12. There were lots of people, at least 120. And these women then relate the story. And, you know, here, I got great news. And it's like, I mean, they must have been quite devastated about that. But what they did is then they went to one of the women's house and they formed the first Christian Women's Fellowship group, because the men don't get it and we're going to get the work done. That's what's going to happen. A couple of important women in current Christian leadership. One of them is a pastor named Nadia Bowles-Weber, and the other is a writer named Rachel Hurd Evans. 4 years ago, got together a national conference. And it was for women, it was led by women, and it was called Why Christian? And the publicity said, why do we continue to follow Jesus in the wake of corruption and hypocrisy and church dysfunction and televangelism? This meeting was in Minneapolis, and it was so successful that it's become an annual event. Why are you Christian? I mean, you have lots of opportunities not to be, and you think of scandals in the church and disappointments in life, and then all of the things that happen to us that are unpleasant and God doesn't fix. Why do we identify as Christians? I grew up in a small town in southwest Missouri. It's a pretty monolithic culture. And it was a pretty idyllic life, really. You know, my college friends said I grew up in Mayberry, and it was Leave It to Beaver, and so on. And, you know, we had plenty. My parents were children of the Depression and went through that and the Second World War, but, you know, it was good times. We had adequate things, and you could ride your bike all over town. Nobody worried about something going to happen to you and all that. And across the street from my house was an empty lot, and there were lots of neighborhood kids about my age, and so, you know, there was some kind of game going on there. You know, if we had 4 kids, we had a baseball game we called Indian ball. I think it's kind of maybe just a thing in my town, but or if you had 6 kids, then you'd have rounders, you know, different tag and hide and seek, and, you know, just stuff all the time. And I went to Sunday school and church, and I tried to learn what the church was teaching. But I would say in those times in my life, what I learned at church really didn't make any difference for my life. I tried to be a good boy, well, you know, try, and I was pretty sheltered by my family and my culture. But all of that was going to change. Death, disappointment, rejection, illness. All those things came around and visited my life. And what I understood about God and Jesus began to be tested by the fire of reality. I was one of the lucky ones. I didn't really have to ever deal with prejudice or really serious illness or abuse or poverty or hunger or crime or addiction or the 1,000 ways that somebody else, dysfunction and selfishness, can mess up your life. Life happens. And if you don't have a connection to a higher purpose, you're pretty much left with the bitterness of, why is this happening to me? Those white Christian conferences attracted women who told their story of faith or lack of faith, struggling with their faith. And although there were many stories and many takes, they kind of basically had the same theme. The theme was hope in the middle of struggle. Now, I'm guessing that there's a person here that is, like me, lived through the fog of pain and trauma and disappointment and fear. But yet, that awful thing that affected your life was somehow transformed. It was put into a reality that was named. And it was put in a place somewhere where it couldn't hurt you anymore. Could you call that transformation from a trauma of loss and disappointment and fear and whatever the love of God? When we are hurting and up against it, and something beyond ourselves gives us strength, it becomes a blessing. Could we call that the love of God? I'm betting that some of you have stories of God's work in your life that was so obvious that others recognized it. And few said, oh, it's just coincidence. But I think the times that God breaks into our life is often so subtle, so kind of shadow-like, that we just hate to mention it. Because if we told people that, they think it's just an idle tale. I kind of think God shows up all the time in a lot of different ways. We just don't get it. And the truth is, it's easy to be stuck in that part of the world that is death and destruction. It's easy to be cynical. It's easy to be negative. It's easy to be smarmy. It's easy to doubt. And we just snare at good things as an idle tale. I understand some people can't find God. I had a wonderful pastor one time that talked about people who would come to him and say they don't believe in God anymore. And he would say, well, tell me about that God that you don't believe in. And they would describe, mean and judgmental and or useless or whatever. And he said, well, you know what? I don't believe in that God either. Let me tell you about another way of looking at God. I think the two strange visitors that Luke describes at the tomb, kind of give us a hint of where we might find God. They said, you're looking for Jesus among dead things. You need to look for Jesus among the living. I have a little video clip I'd like to show. It's by a little troupe, 4 or 5 people, called The One Time Blind.
Here you go. I'm alive. Next. Happy Easter. Next. Eat this in remembrance of me. Oh, Jesus.
Hey, Drew. What's going on here?
Oh, nothing. Just celebrating Easter like we do every year. But this year, I added a stylish beard.
Yeah.
Where's yours?
Okay, I don't understand. Why are you handing out candy?
Well, how else are we supposed to get people excited about today?
What?
Oh, no offense, but it's just kind of the same as last year, you know? I mean, it's the same song, same sermon. It's all the same.
You do realize I rose from the dead, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
And you have that same power today. You have that same power every day. Why aren't you totally excited about this?
Listen, because Easter, it's just another time for us to hear about how you raised and conquered death.
Because I've conquered death, you've conquered death. Because I'm alive, you have life.
Listen, let me break it down for you.
I'm happy this way.
I get to dress up, I hand out candy, and that's good enough for me. I mean, I could get all excited about Easter, but honestly, tomorrow, I just go back to my normal life. Nothing's changed. You're kind of making a lot of hype out of nothing. But don't worry, we'll do it all again for you next year. Oh, you know what? I got a ham in the oven. Take over for me. Next.
Easter could have changed your life, but sadly, it only changed your day.
Anybody got a ham in the oven? Gotta go. Gotta go. So, an idle tale was eventually believed. And it changed. But, is it just your day? Or has it changed your life? Tag.